December 16th, 2025, Buddha Dhamma, chapter 8.4. Today is the basic principles on samatha concentration or samatha tranquility meditation. The passage in the Tipitaka describing particular ways of practice use rather fixed terminology. Even though these passages appear in different locations, there are two main outlines for the way of practice in which samatha precedes vipassana, insight. And that they both involve reaching a superior level of concentration before developing insight. This can be called the supreme way of practice. The following examples are two main outlines are drawn from passages recording Gautama Buddha's awakening. Outline 1. This common description describes the four meditative absorptions of jhanas, followed by the threefold knowledge, vijja. So too, agivesana, when I have eaten solid food, regain my strength. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from the unwholesome states, I entered upon and abide in the first absorption, the second absorption, the third absorption, and the fourth absorption. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of upakilesas of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed to the knowledge of recollections of past lives. This was the first true knowledge attained by me in the first watch of that night. Avijja, ignorance, was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, I directed it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. This was the second true knowledge attained by me in the second watch of the night. Ignorance was banished, light arose. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, I directed it to knowledge of the destruction of asavas, the taints I directly knew as it actually is. This is dukkha. This is the origin of dukkha. This is the cessation of dukkha. This is the way leading to the cessation of dukkha. This is the asavas. This is the origin of asavas. This is the cessation to asavas. This is the leading way to the cessation of asavas. When I knew, I saw thus, my mind was liberated from the taint of sensual desire, from the taint of bhava, becoming, and from the taint of avijja, ignorance. When it was liberated, there came the knowledge it is liberated. I directly knew. Birth was destroyed. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done had to be done. There is no more coming to any state of being. This is the third true knowledge attained by me on the third watch of the night. Avijja, ignorance, was banished. Light arose. When this description is used to describe the practice for the realization of the disciples of Gautama Buddha, the terminology is usually the same except for the passages in brackets. Some passages describe directing the mind to the 8 kinds of knowledge, rather than just the 3 mentioned above, while other passages only mentions directing the mind to the final knowledge of the destruction of asavas. The second outline is a less common description of the 8 concentrative attainments, samapatti, in addition to the attainment of cessation, nirodha samapatti, followed by the knowledge of the destruction of asavas. So too, ananta, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. I entered and dwelled in the first concentration. But as I was dwelling in this state, mental application accompanied by sanya, perception, sanya mana sikara, associated with sensual, disturbed my mind, which was for me an important impediment. It was, and for me, it was an impediment. Then it occurred to me, with the subsiding of applied and sustained thought, let me enter and dwell in the second concentration absorption. Then on a later occasion, I entered and dwelled in the second meditative concentration absorption. But as I dwelled in this state, mental application applied by perception, sanya manasikara, associated with applied thought, disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, let me enter and dwell into the third meditative concentration absorption. Then on that later occasion, entered and dwelled in the third concentration meditation absorption. But I dwelt in this state, mental application accompanied by perception, sanya mana sikara, associated with rapture, beat deep. It disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, let me enter and dwell into the fourth meditation absorption. Then on the latter occasion, I entered and dwelled into the fourth meditative absorption, but I dwelt in the state, mental application accompanied by perception, sanya mana sikara, associated with upeka, equanimity, disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. It occurred to me, with the complete surmounting of perception of rupa, of form, let me enter and draw into the base of infinite space, akasha. Then on that later occasion, entered and dwelling in the base of infinite space, but as I dwelt in the state, mental application accompanied by perception associated with physical form, disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, with the complete surmounting of the base of infinite space, let me enter and dwell into the base of infinite consciousness. Then on the latter occasion, entered and dwelt in the base of infinite consciousness, but as I dwelt in the state, mental application applied by sanya manasikara, associated with the base of infinite space, disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, by completely surmounting the base of infinite consciousness, let me enter and dwell in the base of nothingness. So the base of nothing is the fourth meditation of absorption. On that later occasion, entered and dwelt in the base of nothingness, but as I dwelt in this state, mental application accompanied by perception, sanya mana sikara, associated with the base of infinite consciousness, disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. Then it occurred to me, by completely surmounting the base of nothingness, let me enter and draw into the base of neither perception nor non-perception. On this later occasion, I entered and dwelt in the base of neither perception or non-perception, but as I dwelt in this state, mental application accompanied by perception, sanya mana sikara, associated with the base of nothingness, disturbed my mind, which was for me an impediment. It occurred to me, by completely surmounting the base of neither perception nor non-perception, so basically being indifferent to it, the state of being indifferent or having indifference, let me attain the extinction of sanya and vedana, perception and feeling. So on that later occasion, having seen the danger of the base of neither perception or non-perception, or being indifferent, I attained the extinction of perception and feeling, sanya and vedana. And by Panya, wisdom, the asavas, the taints, were completely destroyed. So long, Ananda, as I did not attain and emerge from these 9 gradual abidings in both direct and reverse order, I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed, perfect enlightenment, and thus the world with its devatas, maras, and brahmas, in this generation with the aesthetics and brahmins, its devas and humans. But when I attain and emerge from these 9 gradual abidings in both direct and reverse order, Loma and Anuloma, then I claim to have awakened to unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world, what is devas, maras, and humans. The knowledge and vision arose in me. Unshakable is my liberation of mind. Thus is my last birth. Now there is no more renewed existence. When the second outline of the gradual path to enlightenment used in general sense for the disciples, it follows the same terminology, but without the delay analysis. When that monk abandons the 5 hindrances, quiet, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters and abides in the first meditation absorption. The second meditative absorption, the third meditation absorption, the fourth meditative absorption, and then the base of infinite space, the base of infinite consciousness, the base of nothingness, the base of indifference, not perception nor perception. That's what they're referring to, indifference. Either enters and abides in the extinction of perception and feeling, so sanya and vedana. Having seen with panya, wisdom, his asavas, his taints, are all utterly destroyed. The reason for this selecting of these 2 passages from Gautama Buddha's enlightenment as examples of the 2 outlines of practice is to show how these 2 practices are essentially the same. Despite appearing different, they both describe the enlightenment of a single awakening point of Gautama Buddha. This enlightenment occurred only once. Scholars may be confused by misunderstanding these 2 outlines of practice by interpreting each description too literally and overlooking evidence from other sources that reveal their compatibility. There are 5 main misunderstandings about these 2 outlines of practice. First, the belief that it is necessary to attain 2 kinds of knowledge, recollection of past lives and the knowledge of passing away of rebirth of beings before one is able to reach awakening. Second, the belief that the 4th 9 material concentration absorption jhana is an adequate basis for reaching the 3-fold knowledge, vijja, and the 6 kinds of higher psychic attainments called abhinya or abhinyaho. These are the 6 kinds of higher psychic attainments. The third is the belief that it is possible to reach enlightenment while abiding in the extinction of perception and feeling. Perception, sanya, feeling, vedana. The third belief is that these 2 outlines indicate 2 distinct ways of practice to awakening. The 5th is the belief that the gradual attainment described in these outlines occur in a single period of time. Now let us look more closely at this misunderstanding. There's evidence that it's not necessary to attain the recollection of past lives or the knowledge of passing away of rebirth of beings in order to attain arihatship or realize nibbita is clear. In some examples of the first outline, there is no mention of the first 2 kinds of knowledge. A person attains the 4th meditative absorption concentration and directs the concentrated mind directly to the destruction of the taints, the asavas. These examples shows that 2 former kinds of knowledge are optional. In the Susima Sutra, Gautama Buddha describes arihats liberated by wisdom, panya vimutta, who are not attached to the five skandha, and discerns patisamupata, dependent origination, and yet are unable to perform psychic powers. They do not have the divine ear, telepathy, recollection of past lives, divine eye. Nor do they dwell in a perfect deliverance. They only possess the knowledge of the destruction of the asavas. They do not possess the five mundane kinds of supreme knowledge. The Abhinya 5. So either 5 or 6 that they were attained, but they do not possess that. Nor do they have access to formless meditative absorptions. The attainment of the 6 abhinya, including the 3 vijja, the 3 knowledge, depends on certain degrees of refined concentration. With sufficient concentration, a person is able to direct the mind to generate a desired kind of abhinya. It is not necessary to attain one kind of supreme knowledge before attaining another. It's a good side note, that during these times, these Brahmins and ascetics were versed in all kinds of knowledge that are without us digging into Satanat Dharma, which is accumulation of Hinduism and Jainism and certain other sects that they uncovered the human potential. Only knowing just one part of abhinya is really hard to understand it, because they were practicing asceticism and they led to awakening tapas and supernatural powers and abilities that every single individual have. But that's just a side note. Because during those times, every single person that was, this is a wealthy society, and they went on penance and austerities to try to find enlightenment or release from the current stage of conditions that they were in. And anyways, that was just a side note of where this is going. But according to Theravada Buddhism, we're talking about 6 abhinya or 5 abhinya, either different levels, including the 3 kinds of vijja, the knowledge. Here, coming back to the attainment of 6 abhinya, including the 3 vijja, depending on the degree of refined concentration. With the sufficient concentration, person is able to direct the mind to generate a kind of abhinya. It's not necessary to attain one kind of supreme knowledge before attaining another. Now, that concentration has attained to full tranquility and achieved mental unification. Then, whatever mental state realizable by direct knowledge, abhinya sachikaraniya dhamma, he directs his mind. He achieves the capacity of realizing that state by direct knowledge. Whenever the necessary conditions obtain, if he wishes, may I wield the various kind of psychic power. May I hear both kinds of sounds, the divine and the human. May I understand the minds of other beings. May I recollect my manyfold past lives. May I see beings passing away, being reborn. May I, in this very life, enter and dwell in the taintless liberation of mind. He achieves the capacity of realizing the state of direct knowledge whenever the necessary conditions obtain. The required level of concentration to these attainments is as follows. The concentration, or in other words, samadhi, of the 4th meditative absorption, concentration, the 4th jhana, is the highest form of concentration. Even the concentration of the formless jhanas is classified as concentration of the 4th. Since mental factors of the formless concentration consists of the same two factors of the fourth jhana, upekha and ekaggata. So equanimity and one-pointedness of the mind. The concentration of the fourth jhana is universally applicable. It is used, for example, as the basis for vipassana, for insight, for supreme knowledge, abhinya, or for the attainment of extinction. There is, however, a special clause. The concentration of the formless jhanas is more refined and further from adverse conditions, pachanika dhamma, than the concentration of the fourth, even the different formless jhanas become progressively more refined. It is for this reason that those who attain arihatship after attaining the fourth jhana are classified as liberated by wisdom, panya vimutta, not as liberated in both ways, upadopaka vimutta. To be classified as liberated in both ways, first, one must have previously attained one of the formless jhanas. Therefore, there is a proviso to the commentary statement that the fourth jhana is used as a basis for other attainments. In some cases, the concentration of ordinary fourth jhana is used, while in other cases, the more refined concentration of the four jhanas, the four formless jhanas, is required. As mentioned earlier, literally speaking, person liberated by wisdom, apanya vimutta, have only attained the knowledge of destruction of the asavas, the taints. They have not attained other forms of knowledge, the vijja or abhinya, nor have they attained the formless jhanas. Attainment of the three vijjas and 6 abhinyas is domain of one liberated in both ways, who has attained formless jhana. This is the standard definition found in the Pali Canon. The commentaries offers a more elaborate definition which can be summarized as follows. At first, person practicing tranquility meditation until attaining the fourth jhana, this is followed by the attainments of all 8 jhanas. These attainments, however, must be the results of practicing the 8 kasina, concentration. Excluding the concentration on light and space, having gained fluency in the 8 attainments, kasina, the mind becomes receptive. At this point, a person only needs to enter the fourth jhana, and then directs the mind to generate or apply one of the abhinyas according to his wishes. As preparation, a person must access the 8 attainments, but at the time of achieving supreme attainment, abhinya, accessing the fourth jhana is insignificant or is significant. Due to the previous cultivation of the 8 jhanas, a person's concentration is thus concentration in this case will be more refined than the concentration of someone who has never attained a higher level than the fourth jhana. From another angle, this commentary explanation, one can say that the fourth jhana is the basis for supreme knowledge, abhinya. This conforms to the statement of the mind possessing 8 factors by developing the concentration of the fourth concentration jhana to the degree that the formless attainments is suitable for application. It is the basis or the proximate cause. Patatana, for realizing any state that may be realized by direct knowledge. Exception to this rule is for those who have strong previous connection, those who have made effort and accumulated virtue in the past. For instance, Gautama Buddha or the silent Buddhas, Pachika Buddha, and the chief disciples. They need not follow this procedure and become proficient in the formless jhanas. They simply need to be skilled in the fourth jhana to achieve abhinya. The 2 passages above describing Gautama Buddha's awakening are compatible with this interpretation, even if they do not mention A previous connection, in the first passage, Gautama Buddha accessed the fourth jhana and directs his mind to realize the three vijas, the three knowledges. Earlier in his life, he had established a strong foundation in samatha and attained the 8 jhanas while living with the teachers Alaka, Ka Lama, and Uttaka Brahmaputra. The second passage reveals that Gautama Buddha developed proficiency in all levels of concentrative absorptions before his enlightenment. The passages describing the extinction of sanya and vedana, sanya vedaniya nirota, can easily lead an inexperienced reader to false conclusions that a person who has attained the state reaches arihatship while abiding in this attainment. By completely surmounting the base of indifference, neither perception nor non-perception, he enters and abides in this extinction of perception and feeling. Having seen with wisdom, his taints are completely destroyed. This passage lists the sequence of practice, realization, but does not include the circumstances to immediate details. The reader should see that this list of stages, nor the description of a single event, compared to it with the passage from the Pali Canon that provides more detail. By completely surmounting the base of neither perception nor non-perception, a monk enters and abides in the extinction of perception and feeling. When a monk both attains to and emerges from that attainment, his mind becomes subtle and pliant. And with his mind subtle and pliant, immeasurable concentration has been well developed by him. With this immeasurable concentration that is well developed, he directs his mind to whatever mental state is realized by direct knowledge, and he obtains that ability to witness these states whenever the necessary conditions obtain. If he wishes, may I wield the various kind of psychic powers, may I hear both kinds of sounds, the divine and the human. May I, in this very life, enter and draw in the taintless liberation of mind. He achieves the capacity of realization of that state by direct knowledge, whenever that necessary condition is obtained. In the second passage, entering upon an extinction of perception and feeling, sanya and vedana, the destruction of the asavas are separated. The attainment of sanya vedaniya nirota is supportive condition, bestowing a suitable level of concentration to the mind. Afterwards, by seeing with wisdom, a person draws in the taintless liberation of mind. These passages corroborate that the fact that the two earlier outlines for the way of practice in which samatha precedes vipassana, having essentially the same meaning. As can be seen from previous 3 points addressing various misunderstandings, the two main outlines describe a single way of practice from different angles. The first outline emphasized the practice and the highest realization that results from applying well-developed concentration to accompany supreme knowledge and insight. The second outline describes intermediary stages of samatha concentration, along with true purpose of samatha, the final stage of vipassana. In this sense, the previous 3 points have already addressed in misunderstandings that the two formulas describe two distinct ways of practice. Points 2 and 3 have already touched upon the subject of time in reference to the practice and realization. In the first outline, Gautama Buddha's gradual attainment of the 3 vijas, the 3 knowledge, occurs in 3 watches of a single night. But in the second case of the practitioners, the attainment of each vija or each abhinya can happen either in quick succession or separated by months or even years. The second outline describes Gautama Buddha's concentration of attainments, clearly indicates the period of time elapses between each attainment. Examples of the same outline describing the attainments of other Practitioners, however, do not mention time, which can give the impression of these attainments occur during a single time period. In fact, there are no uniform period of time that these attainments occur. It will vary from person to person. Once one has access to a higher concentration of attainment, one is able to enter on the previous lower attainments up to the higher attainments in a sequential, connected way. If one has attained the highest concentration attainment, one can enter all attainments from beginning to end successively. The two outlines merely describe the different levels of attainment. They do not necessarily define the time involved. There are passages in the scriptures that confirm the fact. For example, the story of Venerable Sariputra in the Dikkanakha Sutra. While the Buddha was given a discourse on Vedana, on feeling, and other topics in the Boar Cave on Mount Vulture Peak to the wandering Dikkanakha, Sariputra was standing behind Gautama Buddha, fanning him, reflecting on this Dhamma teaching. Sariputra realized Arihatship. This occurred after Sariputra has been ordained for 2 weeks. Looking at the sutra in isolation, one may have the impression that Sariputra had not reached any attainments to add to this opening of the eye of Dhamma, or Sotapanna, stream entry, 2 weeks previous to this occasion. Instead, at this moment, he realized complete awakening, Arihatship. But by reading the Anupata Sutra, one sees during these 2 weeks, Sariputra was developing vipassana in conjunction with the jhanas, yuka, nata, samatha, vipassana at the same time. Tranquility and insight in unison, without interruption. From the first concentration absorption jhana to the extinction of perception and feeling, the extinction of sanya and vedana. This reveals that he has realized the fruit of non-returning before listening to the Dikkanakha Sutra. One last question that should be addressed is, can an Arihat develop samatha concentration and increase concentration and attainment or psychic powers after being enlightened? Those who use samatha as a vehicle, or those who use insight as a vehicle, vipassana yanika, have not previously attained jhana. So those who use insight as a vehicle have not previously attained concentration of absorptions, any one of the bases. But at the moment of path realization, concentration becomes firm. They access the first concentration, jhana. Afterwards, they can access the first fruit of attainment, bala samapatti, in order to abide in happiness in the present, whenever they wish. The question here is whether can they develop higher levels of concentration. The sub-commentaries claim that they can. The state of mind is conducive to refining and strengthening concentration. They probably developed samatha to promote happy abiding in the present. Ditta Dhamma Sukha Vihara. The same most likely holds true in regards to supernormal powers, abhinyas, for 2 reasons. However, arihats do not spend a lot of effort trying to attain new powers. First, they do not seek special psychic powers for their own advantages. Second, the benefits to others are not enough to warrant the difficulty and time required to develop them, as described in the Visuddhimagga. Arihats are more likely to likely to use time and effort to teach others, which is called the miracle of teaching. Anu sa sani pati ha arya. So they devote their time and effort to teach others, which Gautama Buddha praised as the greatest of all miracles. This is superior to concerning oneself with mundane psychic powers, which are potentially harmful and lead ordinary people to be fascinated in mysterious and obscure world that lies beyond their ability to understand that causes them to neglect more important activities. Normally, people seek protection in external condition or divine powers, which opposes fundamental Buddhist principle. Let me read this again. Normally, people seek protection in external conditions or divine powers, which opposes fundamental Buddhist principles. Arihats do not wield or yield mundane psychic powers, still possesses what Gautama Buddha called a noble power, Arya Iti. They are able to look at an endearing, repulsive people and things as endearing and not repulsive. Similarly, they can see attractiveness, alluring people and things as impermanent, conditioned, and unworthy of attachment. This is a greater power than walking on water, driving in the ground, or flying through the air, which Gautama Buddha say are not noble, carry risks, and do not lead to liberation. These mundane psychic powers, abhinyas, are not the essence of Buddhism. They are not an indication of a person's value. One can find evidence of these powers before the time of Gautama Buddha in other traditions. They are only considered excellent when applied by one who is pure and fully awakened. For ordinary people, they can be as dangerous as they are helpful. A fully awakened person, or even someone attained to a lesser stage of awakening, who has moral conduct and perfect right view, samadhi, is superior to someone possessing the 5 mundane powers, but devoid of all these virtues. Most of Gautama Buddha's Arihat disciples are liberated by wisdom, apanya vimutta, without elevating to higher levels of concentration and attainment. And even many of the disciples, liberated in both ways, did not generate the 5 mundane powers.